years 1959, 1960, and 1962. He cut his film of these trips into two 400-foot reels, and it is our privilege to show off the fruits of his labor.
In 1959, Richard Glaze paid a visit to Toronto and spent a number of days exploring the system. He cut together his 16mm footage into a series of vignettes. We start at Humber Loop, which had been rebuilt alongside the construction of the Gardiner Expressway and the Lakeshore Road Queensway revamp and extension 2 years earlier. Service is a lot less frequent these days, making Humber Loop a far less busy place, even as high-rise condominiums obscure this view of Lake Ontario. From Humber, we jump to Mount Pleasant and Eglinton and the northeastern end of the St. Clair streetcar. Note the streetcar tracks and wires turning left onto Eglinton Avenue. These connected with the streetcar tracks at Yonge Street. They were built to operate St. Clair cars out of Eglinton Car House, although this move didn't happen. They were used for occasional emergency diversions instead and were disconnected at their west end when the subway opened in March 1954. Though clearly visible here, they would be removed later in the year. Now, we're following the St. Clair streetcar south past Mount Pleasant Cemetery. And here, a St. Clair car prepares to turn from Mount Pleasant onto St. Clair Avenue towards Yonge Street. After checking out streetcars on Mount Pleasant, Richard Glaze headed over to the Yonge subway. He captured a number of views of the TTC's Davisville yards from the Beltline Bridge. The TTC headquarters building, clearly visible in the background, was just a year old at this point. Notice the original garbage train, RT4, an ex-Peter Witt streetcar. Richard clearly had connections with someone at the TTC, and so was able to get these close-up views of TTC work equipment. Finally, Richard closed off his film of this visit with a rare treat, a chase of the Oakwood streetcar. Running from St. Clair and Oakwood to Eglinton and Gilbert, this Township of York Railway's route would be abandoned just after the end of 1959, the second last of the 4 streetcar lines that TTC operated into the Township of York. These shots are particularly rare as Gilbert Loop was at an extreme end of the streetcar system and the route was abandoned before streetcar charters became commonplace for rail fans with film. This area today, while changed, still shows the influence of this line.
In 1960, Richard Glaze returned to Toronto to attend a charter. The Upper Canadian Railway Society hired a large Peter Witt car number 2424 for a jaunt through the city. Here we see Witt number 2424 on Fleet Street, passing the old Maple Leaf baseball stadium at the foot of Bathurst Street and the Molson's Brewery. Today, only the Tip Top Tailors building remains, repurposed into condominiums. Passing Strawn Avenue, Witt number 2424 enters Exhibition Loop. "35 years later, this gateway to the CNE would be replaced with its current facility located underneath the Gardiner Expressway, where there is a lot less green. Peter Witt car number 2424 was built in 1921 at the Canadian Car and Foundry plant in Montreal, Quebec. It was officially retired with the opening of the Young Subway in 1954, but was kept for excursions like this one. It's running great for a vehicle that's almost 40 years old. After Exhibition Loop, we head east, past the south end of High Park and Grenadier Pond. This shot is taken on the South Kingsway Bridge over the Queensway. Much has changed since this picture. Note the railway crossing, which housed an industrial spur to a brickyard until 1963. This was the route of the West Belt Line, built in the 1890s, serving the village of Swansea and the West Toronto Junction. While at South Kingsway, Glaze's camera captured TTC rail grinder car W28, originally built as Toronto Civic Railway passenger car number 57 in 1915. It would keep working for the TTC until 1975. It now resides at the Halton County Railway Museum. Peter Witt car number 2424 would leave the TTC soon after this charter. Rail fans at the Halton County Railway Museum rescued this car from the scrapyard in 1962 and set about restoring the vehicle to its former glory. Thanks to the effort of dedicated individuals, these historic vehicles continue to carry passengers today.
In 1962, the UCRS held another charter, but one with a particularly special guest. Large Peter Witt 2300 was the first TTC Peter Witt streetcar. Built in 1921, it was the first metal-bodied streetcar to operate in Toronto, and the first of its class to be built in Canada. At the time of this charter, the Peter Witts were on borrowed time. Many had been retired with the opening of the Young Subway in 1954. Others were being kept as service extras. Those that were still operating regularly served the DuPont route along Bay Street, a route that would vanish forever in favor of the Bay Bus when the University Subway opened a year later, in 1963. Witt car 2300 had stopped serving passengers in 1951 and was serving as the TTC's official training car. Most of the remaining Peter Witt cars would be retired and sent to the scrap heap, just a few months after this footage was shot. small bit to
742.
It was one of the unlucky ones. It fell to the scrapper's torch not long after this footage was filmed. Wick Car 2300 might have met the same fate if it weren't for the folks at the Canadian Railroad Historical Association, who had stepped in and on July 17, 1963 bought Wick Car 2300 for their Montreal museum. Unfortunately, this charter would be one of the last times that the car would operate on its own power. It stayed in storage and was briefly considered for Toronto's Beltline tour tram in the 1970s, until it was discovered that it needed costly repairs to run. The car was stored in the John Street Roundhouse from the mid-80s until 2008, when it was shipped back to the Expo Rail Railway Museum in Montreal. At the end of the charter, attendees were treated to a short parade of older TTC work equipment, including Plowcar W9 and Snow Sweeper S41. Neither of these vehicles survive today. Without the dedication of people operating the rail and transit museums of yesterday and today, even the cars that are currently preserved would only exist in film and memory. And film only exists if it too is preserved.
Thank you for watching this video, and thanks to all who helped make it happen. These videos would not have been possible without the support of individuals who contributed close to $7,500 to digitize Richard's 60mm films into high-quality videos. This video is one of the last that the funds helped digitize. However, 2/3 of Rich's collection of Toronto-related 60mm films remain. Now that we have posted the first batch, the time has come to raise funds to digitize the second. For this reason, we have launched a GoFundMe campaign. If you want to see more of Richard's historic films made available on YouTube, we ask that you give generously. A link to the GoFundMe campaign is below, and I encourage you to contribute, and to encourage your friends to contribute. Thank you for your time and attention, and join us soon as we remember more of Toronto's transit history.